feel that I'm suffering in silence. There are a number of judges in this country that have complaints. There are complaints that have been made against a number of sitting judges in this country, including judges, president. I'm aware of those complaints. And there are also complaints that have been made against the Chief Justice of this country, Chief Justice Mogoeng. I have also filed complaints against him, and nobody is talking about those complaints. An impression is created that I'm the only judge in this country against whom there are complaints. So I've decided to speak out, let the truth be told.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that you're not the only judge where there's been issues and complaints being raised around. And I'm sure that we'll get into some of that detail without necessarily discussing the merits of it. But if we go back to the complaint from 2008, which is one that has been sort of hanging for a long time now, it's 12 years later. What do you make of the fact that it's 12 years later and there's still going to be a hearing over that? There still isn't an outcome over that. From the perspective of what that actually means to those who have to engage with the law from the outside?
The complaint is long. It's 12 years old. There have been a number of delays. Some delays were certainly not occasioned by my side. The very last time when there was a hearing was in 2013. We were in Johannesburg for 2 solid weeks. The witnesses that were expected to come and give evidence, particularly the retired Deputy Chief Justice Dikgang Moseneke, did not pitch. We waited for about 2.5 weeks. Subsequent thereto, there were legal challenges that were made by Justices Ngabinde and Jafta, right? There were also delays which were caused by the fact that the legal team, my lawyers, were not paid by the state. And I believe even today they have not been paid in full. So there have been a number of delays. There was also a time when we brought an application for the recusal of one of the members of the tribunal, right? All of these were systemic delays. Unfortunately, for a period of 12 years, it means that my name has not been cleared.
Yeah.
But let me remind you, on the 29th of September 2009, the Judicial Service Commission cleared me from these allegations that were leveled against me by some of the judges of the Constitutional Court. That was a ruling made by the Judicial Service Commission. Then what kept it alive until now was the Democratic Alliance. The Democratic Alliance instituted fresh review proceedings and challenged that decision inter alia on the grounds that the Premier of the Western Cape was not part of the panel of the Judicial Service Commission. There was litigation. The matter went all the way to the Supreme Court of Appeal. I was cleared by the Judicial Service Commission. For the past 12 years, this is kept alive as a result of that interference that was made by the Democratic Alliance. This obviously has caused a lot of harm to me, to my reputation, to the reputation of people around me. I have children.
Judge Hlophe says the case was kept alive by the Democratic Alliance, by Helen Zille. Judge Hlophe went to the Judicial Service Commission and he was not found guilty of the same case. But Helen Zille brought the case again against Judge Hlophe, saying she was not involved in the initial case. She wanted to be involved as a premier. I don't know why she wasn't involved in the first place, but Judge Hlophe was exonerated, so she put that in mind. Let's put that in mind. that Helen Zille brought back the case on behalf of white people to remove Judge Hlophe. The reason for removing Judge Hlophe, it's merely because he represents a change. He wants change in the judiciary. He wants the judiciary to be Africanized in his own ways. Let's continue to listen now.
I have a wife, I have people who love me, I have people who support me. So it has.
If this is your first time, my name is Mgonim Conte, and this is the Royal Opinion. Click the like button and subscribe to the channel. You can also give a super thanks. I'm not sure if there's active. Somebody complained that they're not active. I'm not so sure so far. But you can support the channel. You can join and become a member on a monthly basis. We talk about politics. Thank you. Let's share.
Has caused a lot of prejudice, unnecessary prejudice, and has drawn a lot of negative attention. And the result is that people tend to concentrate on that rather than the good work that I'm doing in the division. It is a fact that this is the best run court in the country. Everybody knows that, but nobody talks about that.
So you call it interference there on the part of the Democratic Alliance. They might argue that it was they exercising their rights in terms of the law. We've seen something like 14 different court cases in relation to this one matter that I think has led to this 12-year delay. Are you confident that this time around, when it's heard at the Judicial Service Commission, that the matter will actually be dealt with and the merits will actually be discussed?
I am hoping that I hope the matter will be heard and finalized once and for all. It has been a necessary storm. It has been hanging over my head for far too long. I would like it resolved and finalized once and for all. It is my hope.
Okay. Now, while you said you didn't want to talk about the specifics of the complaint, which is contained in the documents, what I do want to ask you about is in the recent book that was released by former Deputy Chief Justice Moseneke, he does give an account of what happens. And one of the things he mentioned is that former Chief Justice Pius Langa called you before the statement was released and informed you that there was this complaint. Take us back to that day when you get a call from the Chief Justice at the time to say that he and his colleagues are laying a complaint against you. From a perspective of as you as the recipient, what was that day like?
The first time I was contacted by the journalists and not by Chief Justice Langa. The media contacted my office. It was in May 2018, before there was a formal complaint that was made against me. So I was contacted by the media first, long before. The judges of the Constitutional Court requested time to formulate the complaint. In other words, I was lynched publicly in the media before there was a formal complaint that was prepared against me by the judges of the Constitutional Court. Obviously, it was not good news in the first place, and how the complaint, how it was prepared and how events unfolded. Because there is a presumption of innocence in the first place. But most importantly, the two judges, Gabinda and Jafta, that I was alleged to have improperly tried to influence them, did not complain then, and still there is no formal complaint by them.
And let's remember these words, ladies and gentlemen, the words from the Judge President John Hlophe that got him impeached. He said, "Sithembele kuwe mfana kithi," meaning we trust in you, my homeboy. I trust in you, my homeboy. Those are the ways that got him impeached. Let's put that in mind. He says he was lynched in the media before even the judges have received a complaint. When he wanted to see the complaint, they said they wanted to still formulate the complaint, meaning it was reported that judges have complained about him, while in actual fact they have not yet complained. It was a media release just to make his name dirty because of his stance on transformation of the judiciary.
Right. It is a fact that they are represented separately. They have separate legal representation, separate from the rest of the judges of the Constitutional Court. They have still not filed any complaint. As to the book by retired Deputy Chief Justice Mogoeng, he is entitled to his views. All I can say is that Chief Justice retired Deputy Chief Justice Mosinenge did not attend the proceedings at the Judicial Service Commission in 2013 when I was there. Right? So his version has not been tested in cross-examination. He's welcome to go and give evidence in December when the hearing starts.
Yeah.
He is welcome. I hope he will be there. It doesn't matter what he says in his book.
Are you prepared to give evidence over those conversations?
I have given evidence before in September 2009. It was accepted by the Judicial Service Commission. I was cleared by the Judicial Conduct Tribunal.
I mean now that the case has come back to the fore, are you prepared to once again take the stand and give you?
So Helen Zille have got power to bring back the case even when it was concluded, because she's the one who represents colonialism. She's the one who represents imperialism and slavery and apartheid. She's got the power to be able to resuscitate a case which was already closed. She's able to resuscitate it, bring it back to life, and lynch Judge President John Hlophe in public. Let's continue to listen up.
Your version.
I am prepared. It is exactly the same version I have given before. I'm prepared to repeat that under oath again. Nothing has changed. I'm prepared. I have given that version before. I stand by it.
So one of the things that has delayed this process has been, as you mentioned, the position of judges Nkabinde and Jafta, yes, where they were involved at the outset, but then in a way separated themselves from the complaint itself. Yes. And I just wonder, have you spoken to them since this whole saga started? It's been 12 years of your life, but I'm sure also 12 years of their lives where they're waiting for some kind of finality.
Well, we spoke a couple of times when we met. I remember I met Justice Jafta about 3 years in Cape Town. We greeted each other. After all, we've known each other for many, many years. Mm-hmm. He used to be a senior lecturer in my department when I was a law professor way back. I think the last time I saw Justice Nkabinde was in 2013, if not in 2009. Mm-hmm. But we're very civil with each other. We spoke and we shook hands. Mm-hmm. Right.
And I think some people might look at the situation after taking this many years to resolve this particular matter and really have a question about the processes that are available to deal with complaints against judges and whether or not they are effective. Considering that this has taken a very long time to resolve, it was finalized and then it came back to the fore. Is the problem the legislation? Is the problem the system? What is the real issue here?
I don't think the problem is legislation per se. Maybe it is the system and the role players and other interlopers, right?
The real issue is because when the Judge President Hlophe is innocent, that is what is taking them too long. It's because he has been innocent. He's not been guilty of any wrongdoing as a judge. That is the reason why it took them too long to lynch him, because even when they want to be unreasonable, somehow there are other people who are sober who are able to hear that these people are not talking sober stuff. So Judge President was innocent all along, and that is the reason it has taken so long. 12 years, 15 years actually to be concluded, because this video is 3 years ago.
Right. As I've said before, there are judges like myself. There will always be complaints against me. That much is clear, because the issues are far broader than meets the eye, right? So you would expect interlopers, you would expect politicians always to make a noise, right? Yeah. So, but I do not think the problem is legislation itself. It is perhaps how it is applied. And also remember, the judges themselves who appear before the Judicial Service Commission, myself included, we become litigants in a sense, and we have our rights. We're entitled to take any legal points, right, which may be taken. And as I have said, you know, Justice Kabinda and Jafta have also litigated in this matter. I'm not the only litigant. They have also litigated. They're entitled to that. Inevitably, that causes delays, right? Some of the delays, as I've said, are systematic, but speaking for myself, I am ready to go before the Judicial Service Commission, and I would like this to be resolved sooner rather than later.
Welcome back. We're still in conversation with Judge Hlophe, the Western Cape High Court Judge President. He's allowed us into his home and giving us an opportunity to hear some of his thoughts on some of the matters that he's been involved in. Now, most recently, at the beginning of this year, there was a complaint that was laid against you, Judge Hlophe, by the Deputy Judge President in your own court. That's Judge Goliath. A lot of allegations contained in that complaint, amongst them that the court that you preside over is a very unhealthy working relationship, or unhealthy working environment, let me rather say. The complaint also mentions that, or alleges that you were involved in an assault on a colleague, and also alleges some verbal abuse of colleagues. So quite serious allegations. But you've also come with your own counter complaint. And I think we can get into the detail of that. But if we can start with the complaint by Judge Goliath. You've dismissed that complaint out of hand. You've said that it is not factually based.
Yes.
But if you could take our viewers into your confidence as to what's going on in the court that your deputy would actually make such a complaint against you.
Yes, briefly, Judge Goliath was away from the Western Cape High Court for a period of just around 18 months. The whole of 2017, she acted as a judge in the Constitutional Court, and part of 2018, she took long leave, and she came back to the division. When she came back to the division, everything was nice, it was quiet. The problem started when she could not be appointed as a judge in the Constitutional Court. When she was interviewed for one of the vacancies in the Constitutional Court, she was singing praises about my leadership skills. She was singing praises about how well the Western Cape High Court is run by me. She was singing praises about my leadership, how well I know what I'm doing. But the turning point was when she could not be absorbed. It is a fact that when she returned from the Constitutional Court, there were some structural changes in terms of style that I had to make. It is understandable. She was away from office. I had to move with the time. For instance, there used to be meetings every Friday. I would dish out work at the usual meetings every Friday. New technology has taken over. Meetings are entirely unnecessary, right? So when she lost, she became obviously unhappy, and she wanted her powers back in the division as a deputy. Essentially, she did not want to go to court and be allocated work like other judges. Now, you can't have a system. I think that gave rise to unhappiness. I'm trying to contextualize that. Now, That context is important because you cannot have someone who says 18 months previously, when she wanted to become a judge in the Constitutional Court, everything is well in the division. All of a sudden, without much ado, from one extreme to the other, from hero to zero. I was someone who was hailed running the division exceptionally well, which is true. All of a sudden, there are complaints against me. Let's deal with those complaints. She filed a detailed affidavit dated the 15th of January 2019, dealing with a number of complaints against me and Judge Zille, who is one of the judges in the division. Those complaints.
And who is also your wife?
Who is also my wife.
Yes.
Those complaints were dealt with by the Judicial Conduct Tribunal. Insofar as they relate to me, by a majority of 2 to 1, they were dismissed. Subsequent thereto, the Chief Justice Mogoeng got involved. Now, this is important. At the time when the Judicial Conduct Tribunal said it did not know, it was not disclosed by Judge Goliath that she had a scheduled secret meeting with Chief Justice Mogoeng on the 11th of October 2019. She complained to Mogoeng against me. Mogoeng did not take me into confidence. I do not know what was discussed at that meeting, other than what Mogoeng says, not under oath. He basically says Judge Goliath went to him and complained about me, about my leadership style, as well as the alleged assault by me of Judge Parker. Right? That was not disclosed to me by Judge Mogoeng. He kept quiet for 7 months until he had to respond to a query that was raised by a journalist, I think from Daily Maverick. I had no idea about this secret meeting that had taken place between Chief Justice Mogoeng and Judge Goliath. But what I know is what Judge Parker subsequently told me under oath, because he has deposed to an affidavit in support of the complaint that I have now lodged against the Chief Justice. Judge Parker says in writing, in terms of that affidavit, before he went to the meeting, I beg your pardon, before Judge Goliath went to the meeting of the 11th of October 2019, Judge Goliath went to Park and said, the Chief Justice is waiting for you to go and complain. Shall I tell him about the alleged assault that you were assaulted by Judge Hlophe? Judge Parker says, no, I'm not complaining. We have resolved. I have no problem with Judge Hlophe. Right. Thereafter, she went and met with the Chief Justice. She came back. The next working day, she saw Judge Parker in the building and said to Judge Parker, I've already met with the Chief Justice. He's waiting for your complaint. Here is the telephone number. Here are the details of his professional assistant, Mrs. Slingers. Phone him, he's waiting for you. That's clearly instigating a complaint that does not exist. It's tantamount to investigating it. He is prosecuting the complaint. And suddenly the same Chief Justice who was privy to so much information that was disclosed to him at this scheduled private secret meeting, he deemed it fit, notwithstanding all of that, to write a judgment in terms of which he now initiates a process whereby I could be impeached. You cannot have a judicial officer, with all due respect, instigating a complaint that does not exist, prosecuting that complaint, investigating it like a warrant officer, and ultimately sitting and presiding over that case. Chief Justice Mogoeng knows that he acted improperly. I have filed a complaint. He is quiet. He is yet to respond to that.
So
That's how they act. They don't have, the rules are only for others. When they have to lynch a black man, no rules are followed. Even in the case of President Jacob Zuma, it's actually the same thing. White people select the leaders that they want to lead black people. So when you are resistant to their bribes, when you are resistant to selling out slaves, white people, they don't want you into the leadership of black people. So because they choose, now they have excluded President Zuma from the leadership of the MK party, which is going to which went to parliament. Now they want to remove Judge President John Hlophe from the leadership of the MK party, which was nominated to go to the JSC, Judicial Service Commission, to go and serve there on behalf of the MK party. So these rules are only for keeping others in order, but when it concerns them, no rules are followed.
I've had a look at that complaint. I mean, your words against the Chief Justice in that complaint are quite strong. You accuse him of misconduct in terms of the norms and standards with which the judiciary acts, as well as of the code of conduct.
That's right.
As well as saying that he's acting outside the Constitution.
I feel aggrieved because my rights have been violated. It is unthinkable that you can have a sitting judge, who is a Chief Justice for that matter, right, instigating a complaint against one of the sitting judges. It is unheard of in any civilized world. The Chief Justice ought to know that that is not done. He should know better. That's number one. Number two, he has violated, Chief Justice Mogoeng has indeed violated my constitutional right relating to the right to a fair hearing, the right he cannot sit in a matter and preside over a matter in which he has an interest. There is absolutely no doubt that he has an interest in this matter. It is clear how he has gone about conducting himself. He has an interest in this matter, and he is privy to information that has not been disclosed to me. It's a basic right relating to a fair hearing. He should know better. But most importantly, Chief Justice Mogoeng is a judge like me, right? The Constitution applies to all of us. Chief Justice Mogoeng, like every other citizen in this country, is not above the law. I stress that. He is not above the law. He mustn't think he's above the law, right? And I have rights like any other human being in this country, like any other judge. Mogoeng is not above the law. He must comply with the law.
So Chief Justice Mogoeng is the head of the Judicial Service Commission.
Yes.
Your complaint is with the Judicial Service Commission.
That's right.
He's also the head of the court.
That's right.
Are you confident that you'll see some kind of movement on your complaint against the Chief Justice?
I would expect that there must be movement. If it's a fair process, there must be movement. It is very clear that he's trying to duck and dive. The complaint, first of all, there was an appeal that we filed on the 3rd of August 2020 against his ruling in terms whereby the matter was referred by him, Chief Justice Mogoeng, to the Judicial Conduct Tribunal, right? He has not dealt with the allegations raised by me, leveled against him in that response. Subsequent thereto, on the 31st of August 2020, I filed the complaint now that you have referred to against him, right? He has not even acknowledged, the Judicial Service Commission has not even acknowledged the receipt of that complaint. This is why I have to go public. These are my rights. I'm entitled to a fair hearing, and if Chief Justice Mogoeng violates anyone's rights, he must suffer the consequences. He is not above the law.
None of those complaints were ever entertained by the Judicial Service Commission. When these people, when they want to remove someone, they use anything which is available in their hands to lynch you. Even made up cases to lynch you, then you would understand that people like Julius Malema are not problems of the system. The system cooperates very well with them. They're given platform in propaganda media stations. They are not, nobody is giving them false cases. And if you observe, they are given degrees in order to be approved in the community by the universities. Because if you have to talk about studying, you would really understand that they really don't have time to study, but somehow they are able to get degrees, while other children who've got time to study are oppressed and cannot be able to obtain those degrees. So the system, if you are really against the system, like Judge President John Hlophe and President Jacob Zuma, the system will lynch you. The system will be against you. President Zuma, the system have been chasing him for more than 25 years now. After the freedom, after the attainment of the freedom. Um, Let me say, for 30 years, the system have been chasing after President Zuma. He's been in and out of court. President John Hlophe as well is being chased by the system. So let's continue to share.
All right. I just want to go back to the issue of the Western Cape High Court itself, which seems to be in quite an unusual state of affairs. You said it's a very well-run court, but at the same time, from the perspective of those watching the situation, you have a complaint against the judge president by his deputy. You have a complaint by the deputy against the judge president. But then you also have a complaint by the judges of the court against another colleague, which is Judge Parker. And in all of that, there's allegations that there are lies, there's an unhealthy working relationship, there's favoritism, and you are the leader of that court. What do you make of that as a leader of the court from a perspective of someone looking from the outside? It doesn't look good.
Yes. We must remember this is the narrative that is created by the media. Let's deal with the facts. The facts are the following. The court is well run in the Western Cape by me. There is virtually no backlog in the division, right? Obviously, we are human beings. You would expect differences to arise. I think they are being blown out of proportion in the first place, largely because of the media. Clearly, there are differences, fundamental differences in terms of how I run the division and how Judge Goliath would like to run the division. For me, the most important thing is for us to work together and respect each other, right? There are colleagues, 12 colleagues who deposed to an affidavit and filed a complaint against Judge Parker. I'm not in a position, I do not want to comment on those, on that complaint because it is pending before the Judicial Service Commission. But by and large, this has to do with the allegations that he was allegedly assaulted, right? And Judge Parker, by the way, has gone public and has dealt with those allegations decisively. And there is no complaint by Judge Parker against me relating to alleged assault, and he did not file any complaint with SAPS relating to alleged assault. This again is a mirror image of the old complaint that we spoke about. Remember in 2008, when the Constitutional Court judges filed a complaint, Justices Ngabinde and Jafta, the judges that I was alleged to have engaged, did not complain. Even now, they are not complaining. Exactly the same thing is happening now. 12 years later, Justice Parker, who was alleged to have been assaulted by me, has not complained. He has not laid any criminal charges against me, right? Whatever problems that we have were resolved. Whatever problems that Judge Parker may have had with my wife were resolved. But other judges decide to enter into the fray and say, you told us one day so and so had happened. is clearly a mirror image of the very first complaint against me.
Thank you once again for joining us. We're in the home of Western Cape High Court Judge John Hlophe, the head of that division, and we're dealing with some of the matters that have recently gotten attention in the media, issues relating to complaints that have been laid against him, laid against some of his colleagues, and complaints that he has in fact laid against the Chief Justice of the Constitutional Court. Now, you were talking about this issue relating to Judge Parker and how he hasn't complained, but it's an issue that I think has gotten quite a lot of attention, because obviously
he has been impeached for something which nobody complained about. No one has complained about what he was impeached about. The person who was supposed to be complaining, the complainant, did not complain about the conduct of Judge President John Hlophe. But at the end of the day, he was impeached for saying Stembele kuwe mfana kithi. Just for those words, Judge President was impeached, but he was not necessarily impeached for that. He was impeached as public lynching. It was public lynching for Judge President John Hlophe to show that when black people are descending, when black people are not in line with with what the system requires them to do, they will be lynched in public and they will be removed. He was politically removed from his position. It was politicians who sat down and decided in their political caucuses. They sat down and decided that Judge President should be impeached. It's not based on his judicial conduct, or it's not based on his legal conduct, or on him doing anything wrong. It's actually based on his stance on transformation of the judiciary and the transformation that is needed basically in South Africa. Judge President John Hlophe, let's remember that he was finally impeached by Parliament, by politicians, not for reasons of wrongdoing, but for reasons of politics. The politicians sat down and they voted for reasons. The politics is about bribing each other. The judges are being bribed. We remember that there are judges we know that there are judges who've been bribed. We know this from the public protector's reports about the CR17 money, which ended up in the hands of judges. So we know judges are also being bribed if you listen to Dr. Hlophe, there are other judges who turned against him after they failed to Judge Goliath, after she failed to get to the position she wanted. She turned against Judge President John Hlophe because she was promised that if she can turn against him, then she will be given the position at the end of the day. Let's continue to share.
obviously, an allegation that a judge has assaulted another judge within chambers is quite serious. There was a letter that was written by your lawyer, Mr. Kulu, where he says that there seem to be lies that are being told. And I'm wondering who is telling these lies and why?
Well, my version, as well as my version under oath, I'm not going to repeat it because the matter is still pending before the Judicial Service Commission. Justice Parker has not yet given evidence in respect of what transpired. But one thing clear is this: Judge Parker has not laid any complaint against me relating to alleged assault. Secondly, there is no criminal case pending against me relating to alleged assault. Thirdly, whatever event or incident may have happened in chambers relating to me or Justice Hlophe, all of that was resolved. Now, Parker is a judge, he's a criminal lawyer. If he feels he was assaulted, nothing would stop him from going to court and laying a criminal charge against me of assault, right? If he feels he was not assaulted, he would not complain.
So what I'm trying to get at is what do you think is going on? Why would the other judges who were not party to the meeting or the altercation or the incident, let me rather call it
Right.
that, why would they then lay a complaint? Because what they are essentially saying is that they believe somebody's lying.
Yes.
It's because the other judges were bored. It's mainly because the other judges were bored. That's why they were laying a complaint and they were outside. They were not the people who were done wrong, but they were laying a complaint. It's because they were bored. It's clearly that of the fact that these people get bored sometimes, like finish or something. They were bought by the system, by those who owns the means of production.
So looking at it from the outside, it does look like there's a serious issue within the court. And I'm just trying to get a sense of what might be at the root of that.
Well, they are saying, Justice Parker, they are saying individually, but collectively, that Justice Parker.
Remember to click the like button and subscribe. My name is Mngoni Mkonto and you are in the Royal Opinion. Thank you. I know you sometimes forget. Click the like button and subscribe.
Parker told them one thing. Individually, he told them that he was assaulted by me, but then when the matter came before the Judicial Service Commission, I deposed to an affidavit, which is a statement that was made under oath, and he, Judge Parker, went along with my version, i.e., that he was not assaulted. So the argument is that he is not telling them the truth because he told them individually and separately that he was assaulted by me. But now when I gave my version under oath, he went along with my version that he was not assaulted, which is true because he has not complained. Right? It is the narrative, it's how the matter is being reported by the media. Let's look at it differently. Ask yourself the following question. Why is the explanation given by Judge Parker of how events unfolded, why is that not acceptable? Do they want Judge Parker to lie and say he was in fact assaulted? Because nothing stops Judge Parker from saying he was assaulted, if indeed he was assaulted. But if he says he was not assaulted, people must go along with what he says because he's not complaining. Now, why is he not believed when he says he was not assaulted? This is why I'm saying this is a mirror image of the old case against me in terms whereby judges of the Constitutional Court, Gabinde,
If you understand what happened is the person who was said to be assaulted says he is not assaulted, but other judges are complaining that why is he saying is not assaulted? He was supposed to say he's assaulted. So they are complaining that privately he told them that he was assaulted. But after Judge President John Hlophe went on oath to say he did not assault him, he went with his version. But then other judges came in to complain that no, this one cannot say he was not assaulted. He must say he's assaulted. While the person whom they are claiming he was assaulted says, I was not assaulted. So this shows it's a public lynching is not based on the competency of Judge President John Hlophe. It's based on politics. It's based on the fact that transformation is not needed in the judiciary. They need only people who will be collaborators of the system, the Roman Dutch of the Roman Dutch law, collaborators of the Roman Dutch law, and continue to lynch black people who try to liberate other black people.
After did not and are still not complaining. But other judges of the Constitutional Court, some of them were not even in the building, are complaining, saying, no, we have also been involved in this because we don't sit individually, we sit as a group. In other words, as the slogan goes, an injury to one is an injury to all. I've heard that in the context of trade unions, but clearly it happens in judicial circles as well.
So an injury to one is an injury to all. I think one might be able to say then in the context of the judiciary, though, an injury to the image of a judge can be seen as an injury to the image of the judiciary as a whole.
I agree entirely.
Now, perhaps you could tell us, as people who rely on the justice system, who see judges sometimes as the last gap measure for justice.
Yes.
How do we know, with all of these complaints and counter-complaints within this division, that you are all able to actually work together and continue to do the work of delivering justice?
It's very easy. Look at the results. We were in court yesterday and nobody has complained. Ever since these complaints started in January, this court has been run effectively and efficiently. I challenge any member of the public, I challenge any attorney or advocate who is not getting justice, or any litigant in the Western Cape, to come and complain. Notwithstanding this huge public lynching and huge public pressure which is brought upon me in particular, work is going on as usual. We are human beings. People must not forget that judges are human beings. We should be allowed to differ. But I do think, with respect, it is the narrative that the media is running with, which is creating an impression that everyone who's a judge in the Western Cape is fighting. We're not fighting, we're adults at the end of the day. It is how events have unfolded, with specific reference to the Goliath complaint, how it started in the first place. Goliath did exactly this. The Goliath complaint, like the other complaint, we read about it literally in the media. An envelope was given, a brown envelope was given to me. My wife was not even at work on that day. If my memory serves me well, it was shoved under her chambers, right? Within hours, the media was running with it. Right? It happens with all complaints against Judge Hlophe, but remember, I'm still expecting the same media to run with the complaints against the Chief Justice and the other judges president, right, including the judge president, that there is a complaint against him of gross misconduct, which was filed with the Judicial Service Commission more than 7 years ago. In fact, I invite you now, write to the Judicial Service Commission. This information surely is in the interest of the public. Ask for information, the names of judges in respect of whom there are complaints against them.
So just looking at what you're saying, do judges know how to accept being disciplined or being questioned, considering that some of these matters seem to be staying in the courts initially for a very long time before they end up at the point where they're actually being dealt with? If you look at the Mutata case, if we look at your case, there's a lot of litigation that has happened in both of those matters. Do judges actually know how to deal with criticism, to deal with being questioned, as people who often are the ones that are delivering judgment?
Yes, I think judges, as I have said before, are human beings. We would accept being criticized and disciplined. Personally, I don't have a problem with that. The problem starts when the process is not fair, when there is selective prosecution, when there are certain judges who are guilty of misconduct, who are sitting on the bench, and they are not being disciplined. Then you hear about one judge and one judge only every day, and that is Hlophe. You don't hear about complaints that have been made against those judges, including Chief Justice Mogoeng. He's conveniently quiet. Not a single journalist in this world is talking about serious complaints that have been leveled against him of gross judicial misconduct. There is not a single journalist who's calling for his head. There is not a single journalist who says he must be suspended pending that investigation. Everybody is quiet. Then I have every problem with the system which is like that, where there is selective prosecution.
Okay. Well, we are here today and we're talking about exactly that. So I don't know if we can say not a single journalist is looking at the matter. I think it is a very important issue for the country to look at what's happening in the judiciary as the third arm of the state, and for people to also have confidence in the judiciary. And the issue of the impression that gets created by these complaints and counter complaints. Is it the best way to deal with these kind of issues, for judges to be laying complaints against one another?
Well, firstly, I take it back. Let me take it back. You are the first journalist, I must say, to come to me and ask me questions in that regard. So I will take that back. The question, is it fair for judges to be subjected to this? It is not fair, obviously, for the judiciary to be subjected to public lynching. Nobody enjoys that in the first place. And we have families. We have litigants, people appear before us. There are many people who take us seriously out there in the communities. So it's clearly not fair. I wish we could find another different way of dealing with these complaints. But as I've said before, the problem starts when there is selective prosecution of judges and selective public lynching. There are those who are liked by the system, who are favored, and you don't hear any complaints relating to them. But those who are not favored by the system, those who are not liked, will always be chased. That obviously becomes inherently unfair. Once there is a complaint and the name of the judge is being dragged down the drain or through the mud, that particular individual judge is fighting with his or her back immediately against the wall. And sadly, we have to go and preside in cases, right? And the litigants are there. They read newspapers as well. So it is clearly not fair. And I've gone through that for the past 13, 14, 15 years. Right?
Has it affected your work?
It has. Well, I deal with it. I do not allow it to affect my work. I believe, notwithstanding these ongoing complaints against me, I do my work. I run the division. I preside over cases. The number of appeals against my judgments has not increased. So I do my work. It has not. I try and not to allow it to affect me. I would be lying if I say it doesn't affect me. It does affect me. I'm a human being as well. I'm not a supernatural human being, right? But I do not want it to affect me to a point where it affects my ability to perform. I want, when I get up here every day, go to work, I want to be able to do my work, dispense justice fearlessly and without fear and favor. So it doesn't affect me to that extent.
Now, one of the things that has come up in the various back and forth over the complaints relating to Judge Goliath is that there is an allegation of favoritism as it relates to your wife, Judge Zille Hlophe, and I think that the suggestion is that you are treating her more favorably than other colleagues in the court. That's one of the things that the Judicial Service Commission is now meant to investigate, and you've said that you're appealing that investigation itself. When you look at the situation where there's a suggestion that your wife and you shouldn't work in the
judge president, and maybe this might be viewed or seen as some sort of delay in terms of executing your duties as a judge president of the High Court.
Yes. I don't think the problem is confined to the Western Cape.
Yes.
Judges, remember, we all have our past. We come from a variety of backgrounds. Even though all of us we have embraced this constitution, the new constitution, but obviously our value systems, where we come from, informs us in terms of how we interpret the law and how we interpret the constitution. We do not expect judges to think alike, all of them, but certainly you would expect judges to think, to have a common vision, share the same values, right? Because all of us are from a very bad past, which was colored by apartheid, colored by racism, and defined also by inequality.
Correct. I think now that you have actually, identified the challenge that we might still have in terms of, having presiding officers at the High Court, or be it magistrate, who are not yet transformed to actually, come to embrace these principles and values that drive this about social change, because obviously the work that you do does have an
This is the actual reason why Judge President John Hlophe was impeached, for talking about transformation in the judiciary, for talking about changing the Roman Dutch law, Africanization of the Roman Dutch law, meaning taking African law as the main law of the judiciary. So that is the reason it was actually impeached. Listening.
impact in what happens in the society.
Yes.
Now, what do you think about the South African, judiciary as a whole?
Well, I'm part of the South African judiciary. Remember, I think we obviously, it's a learning curve. We still all have a long way to go, but the most important thing is that we must embrace the Constitution as we go along. We must make sure that the values and the principles that are enshrined in the Constitution are in fact internalized.
Yes.
I'm one person who has openly said, for instance, judgments, particularly of the Constitutional Court, must be short and straight to the point.
Exactly.
I mean, why should I have a judgment which is 88 pages telling me why the death penalty is outlawed, instead of just a 10-page judgment, which basically says the right to life is so important, you can't give it away. I don't want a judgment which is 88 pages. They must be so short, written in simple language, so that even a taxi driver can understand.
Yes.
That would be just one way of ensuring that we internalize the Constitution sooner rather than later.
Yes.
Because for me it is important that all South Africans, particularly those who fought for this Constitution, all South Africans must benefit from the Constitution.
Correct.
We can't have a situation whereby people, the vast majority of South Africans, because they are poor, they have no access to land, they've got no access to the economic resources, they have no access to justice, they are marginalized, yet these are the very people who fought for liberation. So,
right. So I think you've said quite a mouthful information, stuff about, how the judiciary, in terms of, the court judgments that are issued out there.
Click the like button and subscribe. Click the like button and subscribe if you are here for the first time. My name is Mngoni Mkonto and this is the Royal Opinion. Click the like button and subscribe. Just reminding you, Judge President John Hlophe talking about transformation of the judiciary, saying that judgments should be shorter and should be understood. This is the reason why he was actually impeached, talking about the transformation of the Roman Dutch law.
Need to be actually approached in a manner in which people, like, for example, myself, I'm not legal expert, I know nothing about that, and yet you find that there's this 500 pages of a court judgment. In order for people such as myself, what approach do you think should actually be followed in making sure that we actually have this accessible court outcomes, and we get to understand what is actually said in those outcomes of the court?
My approach has always been keep your judgments. The judges should keep their judgments simple, short, straight to the point. Do not decide issues that you are not called upon to decide, and avoid, as far as possible, referring to foreign law.
Okay.
That's where I have a problem with, for instance, courts that tend to go to other jurisdictions, for instance, Western world, to go to try and find solutions which will apply to Africa.
Yes.
That seldom works. If we need any solution, particularly in the context of the Constitution, I do not understand why there is always reference to German law, Canadian law. We should look to South Africa for solutions.
Correct.
Because our problems are peculiar to us. I don't think we'll ever find solution in those jurisdictions.
Well, I'm wondering, as the head of, the judiciary in the Western Cape, what sort of steps are you taking into addressing, the various concerns you're raising?
Well, normally we have had in the past some kind of judicial training. One of the things that are done, I've often done that myself. We help judges, aspirant judges get trained by SAJE, which is South African Judicial Education Institution.
Okay.
One of the things that is done is teach judges how to write judgments.
Oh.
I often do it myself in the Western Cape, address lower court judicial officers, magistrates, regional magistrates, newly appointed judges. I think there is a great deal of improvement.
Okay.
One other complicating factor in judgments is the use of Latin. I still don't understand why judges use Latin in their judgments. It's a dead language. It's not even lectured. I mean, it is not even a requirement for having a law degree.
Yes.
When I did my LLB in those days, you had to do Latin. It's no longer even a requirement.
Yes.
The vast majority of the young generation lawyers do not study Latin.
Yes.
Yet you still find judges using Latin in their judgments. That adds to the problem. So in my view, judgments must be simple, address the issues, use simple English or any official language that is being used, but obviously the language of record is English. Straight to the point, simple English.
So
Keep
you
it
would
simple.
actually agree that there should be some form of decolonization taking
Of the
form in
mind.
the judiciary?
Undoubtedly, decolonization of the mind. I think we aspire, we want to look scholarly, we want to look like House of Lords judges, we want to look like judges of the Supreme Court of America. The circumstances are totally different.
Because we're in Africa.
The vast majority of our people have no access to justice by complicating judgments, making them unduly scholarly and long. We are in fact denying the very people access to justice. Because in order for an ordinary human being, let's say a teacher, an average but educated human being, you will never understand a judgment of a court without being assisted by a lawyer to understand something basic.
Yes. No, I think that's a beautiful response. I'm also of the view that, of course, there should be some sort of transformation, because we need to accommodate the ordinary people in the street.
Absolutely.
Often you find that it's only, academics, scholarly people who get to understand how the whole law system works.
It
now,
shouldn't be like that.
I'm thinking, is there some sort of coordination between the national office, the judge, the CJ, Chief Justice Mokoeng, in terms of, all these beautiful proposals on how to transform, the law and make it accessible to the ordinary people in the street? Are you sort of having some sort of, conversations with the higher office in terms of how you can make this whole law system very accessible to the people?
In terms of judgment writing, as I indicated earlier, SAJE, which is South African Judicial Education Institute, always give lectures. A year in and year out, almost every year, there will be a lecture to aspirant judges or newly appointed judges. One of the series of lectures that is given is on judgment writing. That's easy to deal with. Now, some of the challenges that we are talking about, making the law accessible to the people, making people understand, relate to the law, that's what I call Africanizing the law.
Yes.
I have publicly said we must Africanize the law. Let me explain what I mean. Our law is very Eurocentric.
Yeah.
When we say South African law is common law, that is the law which we have inherited, which is of Roman Dutch origin and English. It's a fusion. South African common law is a fusion of Roman Dutch law, which we inherited from the when we were colonized by the Afrikaners, and English law. It is therefore a fusion, right? Now it's called common law.
Yeah.
I do not have a problem per se with common law, other than the fact that we must not lose sight of the fact that when that common law was developed, you and I had no right to vote. So it is not common to us.
Yes.
We had no input whatsoever in making and developing what is today called South African common law. So it's clearly not common to us. So when I say Africanize the law, I'm not saying take the legal system and throw it away. You are not going to throw the baby with the bathwater.
Correct.
But you want to make that system of the law, which you have inherited from your colonizers, you want it relevant to the people that it is supposed to regulate. Law is an instrument for engineering social change.
Yes.
Law is about regulating human behavior.
Correct.
Right? So in order for people to understand,
Law is an instrument for engineering human change. Law is an instrument for engineering human change. President John Hlophe exactly saying that he wanted the Africanization of the Roman Dutch law, which we're currently in. South Africa is currently under the Roman Dutch law. The Roman Dutch law, like is explaining, it's a law which the English and the British and the Dutch and the Germans have agreed on after the war. The common law which they have agreed upon that it will rule over Europe. So we just adopted it as it is and come to Africa, and it was implemented as it is. We did not even adopt it willingly. It was guns that were used to make us adopt all these laws that would favor the oppressors, that would favor the people who came to occupy our land. Now our hands are tied because of the laws that were drafted by those who came to occupy us. They started politics in order to ensure that they keep control of the things that they have stolen from black people. Judge President John Hlophe explaining there that he wanted the transformation of the judiciary, the Africanization of the judiciary. This is the actual reason why Helen Zille had to impeach Judge President John Hlophe. Helen Zille represent the Zionists in South Africa, the people who are committing genocide in Palestine at the moment. Helen Zille represent those people in South Africa. She's the most trusted. She's an agent. She's an agent of those people who controls the planet.
and identify with the legal system, you must make it relevant to their day-to-day needs and aspirations. I'll give you a number of examples. It's high time that academics, for instance, when they write books, they give examples that we can relate to. Let's take an example, company law.
Yeah.
Company law works on this basis. Say there is a company, the shareholders, people who have shares in the company, get what is known as, they are shareholders, they have shares, and they get dividends at the end of the financial year. You can give a very good example that is close to your heart as an African. There is what we call in my culture, ilimo, right? Ilimo, this is what happens. You, for instance, I live here. Neighbors from the vicinity would come and assist when it's time to plow, right? They would come with their grain, they would come with whatever, they will come with their hose, we plow, we work together. That's a very good analogy of a company, but it has the following consequences. That food, those crops will not belong to me only. When it's time to reap, when it's time to harvest, I must share that with the rest of my community. Isn't that an outstanding example
That's beautiful.
of a dividend? And the company is issuing out dividends. Why are academics, when they write scholarly books, not use such examples, things that we can relate to as the African people and as the majority in the country? We can multiply examples. All I'm trying to say when I say let us Africanize the law is too Eurocentric, and the judges continue to refer in case after case to what I consider to be foreign law, which is basically European law, which strictly speaking should have no place in our legal system. We should be paying more and more attention to our needs so that our system can rapidly evolve in line with our constitution.
Some beautiful insights right there. I think everyone would be excited to actually, get to hear you as the Judge President of the Western Cape, having those beautiful thoughts on how we need to transform the judiciary and make it accessible to the people, and also Africanize it, as you had said.
Have to Africanize it.
Right. So moving right along. I'm interested. Everyone else is interested in knowing, because we have seen, from the media, we've read from the media, we've learned that, there's some sort of, cases.
Africanizing of the judiciary. That is what is President Jacob Zuma is advocating for. Africanizing of the Roman Dutch law. In actual fact, remove the Roman Dutch law from the people, from our laws, from our constitution. Remove the Roman Dutch law, establish our own African laws, which will be in favor of black people. Black people are at the moment under colonial rule, at the moment under slavery, under capital rule. Black people will continue to suffer if nothing changes. So we need the Africanizing of the law. We need to change the law to ensure that our resources are kept in our land and in our pairs, to be able to provide free education and to be able to take care of the health of the community. By selling our minerals and by selling our natural resources, South Africa can be able to feed its own children. I want to thank everybody for joining the live stream. I appreciate. My name is Mngoni Mkondo, and this is the Royal Opinion. You can click the like button and subscribe. You can also comment and share the content. You can also join the Royal Opinion to support us or give us some super thanks that we can appreciate. Thank you very much. We're going to end the live stream. Please don't forget to click the like button and subscribe. Thank you very much.